Okay, so today's lesson is I can model and solve rational word problems. I know it's everybody's favorite, word problems, of course. So once again, rational means fraction. And then we're just going to look at some real world problems is what we're going to do. Alright, so here's our first example. Suppose a painter can paint an entire house in 12 hours. I'm going to circle that because that's important. And the second painter the second painter takes 8 hours, so that's important. How long would it take together to paint, let me change that to paint the house. There we go. Okay, so I wrote this little equation. This is how you're going to set it up every time. So the rate of person 1 plus the rate of person 2 equals the rate together. So the first painter could paint a house in 12 hours. Here's his rate, 1/12. Okay, and then the rate of person 2 is 8 hours. Okay, and then that's going to equal their rate together. So since we don't know their rate together, I'm just going to put it as x is what I'm going to do. Okay, so then these are like solving the rational problems where we're going to look at the denominators and figure out what the LCD is. I think the easiest way to do these, just to save time, is I'm just going to write all three of the denominators together. And then that's going to be my least common denominator, just to make it simpler. Okay, so if you remember from the previous lesson, we take the least common denominator and we put that at the top of each fraction. And then we cancel out anything it has in common on top and bottom. So then in purple, what I've done is I've circled what's left and I wrote it out in purple. So now I'm going to simplify it because this is not exactly how we would do it. So this first part is going to become 8x. The next part becomes 12x, and then the last one, 12 times 8 times 1 is just 96. So we're going to solve this just like we would a regular problem. 8x plus 12x is 20x equals 96, and then I'm going to divide both sides by 20. And you can use a simple calculator to figure this out. So x equals 4.8 hours. And that's our answer. It's pretty much the same as what we just did. I'm not sure why you can't read that. Let me slide that over. Alright, so this one. Jacob Mills can paint a picture in 6 hours because he's an artist, but Miss Slate only needs 4 hours because she's old. How long does it take them working together? So same thing we're going to do. We're going to do the rate of Jacob, that's 1/6, plus the rate of Miss Slate, 1/4. And then we want to see the rate of them working together. So because we don't know that rate, we're going to do 1/x. So I'm going to do the same thing. I want to find the least common denominator. Instead of factoring and doing all that, I'm just going to make it really simple. And I'm going to use all three denominators. And I'm going to put them at the top of each fraction. So this is what we have. And then I'm going to start canceling out things that I see on top and bottom. And now I'm going to highlight what's left. And I'm going to clean this up so that it looks a little prettier. So this becomes 4x plus 6x equals 24. Okay, so now I'm going to solve it. I'm going to get my x's together. That's 10x. I'm going to divide both sides by 10. So x equals 2.4. So if Jacob and I were to paint a picture together, obviously it would be a masterpiece, but it would also take us 2.4 hours. Alrighty. Oh, look at my baby Posty. Yes, so let's do this one. Post Malone can record a hit song twice as fast as Cardi B, because he's that much better. Just kidding. Okay, and Cardi B, she just does it. Well, we don't know what she does it. So this one's a little different. So working together, it takes 5 hours. How long would it take Posty by himself? So this is a little bit different. Rate of Posty is twice as fast as Cardi B. So I'm going to write 1/x. And then for Cardi, I'm going to do 1/2x. because it takes her twice as long to do it. And then together, it would take them 1 over 5. Alright, so I'm sorry to do this, but I'm going to get rid of Posty. Bye. We still love you. Okay, and now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do my LCD, and I'm going to put my LCD on the tops of all 3 of those fractions. I'm going to mark out what they have in common. I'm going to highlight what they have left, and I'm going to clean this up a little bit. So 10 plus 5 equals 2x. So 10 plus 5 is 15. And then I would get rid of the 2 by dividing, so x equals 7.5. And now I want to show you an EOC problem. So this is one that they have put on the released EOC. Martha can paint a room in 2 hours. Jamie can paint the same room in 6 hours. And then we're trying to find out how long, and this is very important, to the nearest tenth of an hour. So remember, that means one decimal place. Will it take them to paint the room together? So I'm pretty sure this was a gridded response question. So not multiple choice. You had to figure it out. So Martha can do it in half, 1 over 2. That's her rate. Jamie can do 1/6, and then we don't know the rate of them working together, so 1 over x. I'm going to let you pause this and see if you can finish it. So 1, 2, 3. So hopefully you figured out that the LCD was 2, 6, and x. I'm going to do that to the tops of all 3 fractions. So just to speed this up a little bit, it's going to become 8x equals 12. I'm going to divide both sides. And then hopefully you know that reduces. And so you know it reduces to 3/2, but notice that in the problem it said to the nearest tenth of an hour. So that means you actually have to find the decimal. So the decimal answer that you would have wrote is 1.5. So hopefully that makes sense. If not, you can email me. Alright, and then we're going to jump over to complex fractions. So these are a little bit weird. So complex fractions are when you have fractions in the numerator, the denominator, or they could be in both the numerator and the denominator. So if you've seen the movie Inception, it's like a dream within a dream. These complex fractions are like fractions within the fractions. Fraction inception. Alright, so what we have to do is we have to look at the denominators. So there is a fraction on top. This is the denominator. And there is a fraction on the bottom, and this is the denominator. And so we need to figure out what the LCD is. But in order to do that, we need to make sure that we factor everything completely first. Okay, so just to save time, I've factored everything completely. If you look at the denominators, now we can see that both denominators have the 4x minus 1. So that definitely needs to be in our LCD. And if you also notice, there's this 2 that I have to take into account. So I have a 4x minus 1 and I have a 2. So I'm going to do that on the tops of both of those fractions. So if you've noticed, I've added the LCD to the tops of the fractions, and now I'm looking for things they have in common. So the goal is to have just one fraction. So notice that 4x minus 1 and 4x minus 1 can cancel out. Oh, and I forgot to include my 2, very important. And then also that 2 can cancel out. And then on the bottom, 4x minus 1 and 4x minus 1 can cancel out. So I'm gonna highlight for you what is still left. So on the very top is still 18x. And on the bottom, we have a 2 and a 4x minus 2. Now I'm going to erase this just to give me some extra room. So give me just a minute. So this is what we have left after we have canceled everything out. I'm going to make this a little bit simpler. So 18x on top, and then I'm going to go ahead and multiply 2 and 4x squared, which becomes 8x squared. So this is just a simple simplifying a rational expression problem that we did in the very beginning. If you have forgotten, remember 18 breaks down into 2 times 3 times 3, and then we have the x. And on the bottom, 8 breaks down into 2 times 2 times 2, and x squared becomes x times x. So we should know how to simplify, but in case we have forgotten, the 2's are going to cancel out, the x's are going to cancel out, and then what I have left on top is 3 times 3, which is 9, and then on bottom what I have left is 2 times 2, which is 4, and I also have that x. So that is going to be my final answer. Alright, we're going to move on. So we're going to do the same thing. I want you to completely factor it first. Okay, it has been completely factored. Notice that there is a x plus 2 on the bottom. I definitely want that in my LCD. There's also this x plus 4. Let me do that in a different color. X plus 4. They both have it. I don't need to repeat it. Just one time is fine. And then there's also this x minus 5. So what I want you to do is I want you to put that on top of both fractions. Okay, so something similar to this is what you should have written down. And then you should start to see things that you can cancel out. So on that very top, we have the x plus 2's, and we have the x plus 4's. And on the bottom, we can cancel out the x minus 5's and the x plus 4's. So in purple, I'm going to circle what we have left, and then I'm going to write that out and make it a little less messy. Okay, so hopefully that looks a little better. This is what we have left. And then always remember that we want to make sure that there's not anything that we can cancel out on top and bottom. So if you look at the top and the bottom, notice that they both have these x plus 2's. So we got to get rid of those. So really the only thing we have left is x minus 5, and that becomes our final answer. So I know those are crazy problems, but they end up being kind of nice at the end. Alright, I'm going to let you try this one in 1, 2, 3. So there are some different ways you can do this one. I'm just going to make this super easy, and I'm going to list out all of the denominators. So x, y, 8, and x cubed, and I'm going to put that on top of the fractions. And then I'm going to start to mark out things it has in common, and I'm going to highlight what it has left. Alright, and I'm going to clean that up and make that a little nicer. Okay, let me get rid of this. Alright, so this is what we have. We have not simplified it, so go ahead and simplify it as much as possible. And this is my final answer. Okay, so feel free to email me, hit me up on Remind, whatever you need to do if that did not make sense. That's the end.